Welcome back to Dump It, the podcast where letting curiosity get the best of you is highly encouraged. I'm your host, Victoria, and we have a little bonus episode for you this week. And this is the story about the time I impulsively joined the Navy. A little bit of background if you did not listen to my previous episode about the time I got married when I was 19. When I graduated high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and I got a boyfriend and very quickly just wanted to do whatever he wanted me to do. And he joined the military, so I thought it would be a good idea if I also joined the military. Newsflash, that did not go very well. When I first met my ex husband, he was already enlisted and ready to go to the Navy. And one of my best friends also was getting ready to go to boot camp and had joined the Navy. So there was all of these people around me kind of getting ready to move on with their lives and have these really awesome, bright futures ahead of them. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I just thought, hey, he's joining the military. I bet he would really like it if I joined the military too. So I went down to the recruiting office with one of my best friends who was actively joining. And I talked to the recruiter, and they had me hooked. They really sold me on the entire idea of it all. Because I had originally considered joining the Air Force. And I remember the Navy recruiter said, "Do you want to be stationed in Nebraska or Wyoming or Hawaii?" And I was like, okay, you've changed my mind. I did no research other than this. So after that, I started going a few times a week to the recruiting office just to meet with them and kind of talk through my options. And I was really weighing, should I go and should I join the Navy? Um, the recruiters would have me come with them on runs and help me kind of prepare for what life would be like if I went to boot camp. And I was pretty hooked. I was like, cool, this is awesome. This seems like a good path for me. I think I can do it. And so I said, yes, I said, let's do it. Um, I think part of this was because the recruiters, even though they were much older men, were very flirty with me and my little 17-year-old self. And I thought this was awesome. I was getting a lot of attention from these three recruiting men, and they always wanted to hang out and text and talk and go for runs and teach me things about the Navy. And I was like, oh my gosh, they like me and they want to be my friend. They think I'm cool. So I committed. Um, and when you commit to join any branch of the military, you are required to go through what's called the Military Entrance Processing Station, or MEPS. You go to MEPS a few weeks before you're set to ship out to basic training, just to, do a little bit of a check. Make sure you're physically capable, make sure you're healthy. It's kind of a 1 day long physical exam. The MEPS in Utah was about an hour away from my house. So my recruiter drove me down in the afternoon because I'd have to stay in this like military specific hotel. And then I have to go next door to the processing station at like 4 a.m. the next morning. So I get to the hotel and I was roomed with another girl also going to processing the next morning. And she was like so excited and so ready for it. And this is when I kind of started having second thoughts because I had already been committed to go for around 6 months at this point. I told the recruiters, yes, I want to do it in like July of 2015. And this wasn't until around like November of 2015. I had told everybody I was joining the Navy. I had kind of established that this was the course I was taking in my future. Everybody was so excited. And then when I got there to this hotel room and there's this other girl who is so excited, I was like, oh, I'm not that excited. Am I doing something wrong? Like, why is she so happy to be joining the military? And so I really started having second thoughts and doubts, but I was very worried about disappointing people. So I was like, okay, I just got to swallow this down. I just got to do it. But I think that the biggest thing I was terrified for and having so much panic about prior to MEPS was the full body physical exam, because I had never in my life had a full body physical or a vaginal exam ever. And I was only 17. I was a young girl. I was scared to death. I did not want these like strange doctors to see me naked. I didn't even want to see myself naked. And so I almost didn't go to MEPS solely because I did not want to have that exam done. But then I was like, okay, just got to do it. Just got to bite the bullet. My whole family is so excited. All my friends, my boyfriend, they're counting on me to do this. So I went. So we wake up the next morning really, really early. We go over to the processing, and it was just like exam after exam, and they run labs on you and just make sure that you have no like underlying illnesses. They do a pregnancy test because they definitely don't want to send you to boot camp if you're pregnant. And it was like the longest day ever. So, in between all the physical exams, you have to take the ASVAB test, which is basically a test that determines your skill levels and then matches you to your job in the military. And so I scored somewhere around like the 67th percentile, and so they gave me the option to either become a musician because I had played the cello or to be a gas turbine system technician electrician. This job is defined as somebody who operates, repairs, troubleshoots, and performs organizational and intermediate maintenance on electrical components of a ship's propulsion gas turbine engine. Like, why did they think I could do that? I have no idea. Like, what in my little aptitude test said, yeah, she should work on the ship's propulsion gas turbine engines? No, I don't even think I scored highly on the mechanical part. Like, I had loved English and writing, and I failed science like 4 times. So I have no idea. I think that that was just the one that was open, and they were like, cool, yeah, anybody can do it. Why I picked that one, no idea. I should have chosen the musician route and played the cello, but I think that he had told me that I couldn't actually play the cello in the band. I'd have to learn another instrument or like the piano, and I had only known how to play the cello, so I just thought that wasn't really an option for me. So yeah, I went with the GSC. So then, when everything comes back clean from all your physical exams and you are fit for duty, you go and swear in and take your oath to become a military member. And this was so scary for me. My parents came down and they were so proud of me, and like my best friends were there, and you have to like swear your life into the military. And I loved seeing how excited my family was. I loved how proud my parents were of me. And I was like, okay, I'm really doing something with my life. Like, go me, even though I really didn't want to do it. So this is when I started to feel a lot of pressure to go through with this decision. My mom was like posting all over Facebook about me joining the Navy, and my dad would tell anyone who would listen, and my parents were like overjoyed that I was following in my great grandpa's footsteps. But I felt like sick anytime I thought that I was actually leaving. So I kind of just pushed it into the back of my mind because I wasn't set to go to boot camp until December. And so, from July to December, it was just kind of like a fake thing in my head. I was like, that's not really going to happen. No, that's never going to come. Like something's going to happen and I'm not really going to go. But then December came and I did have to go. And that was horrible. I remember everything so vividly from basic training because it was like I was on a different planet. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I watched this jail show. I think I watched 60 Days In, and as I was watching it, I was like, "Wow, why is the jail similar to basic training for the Navy?" Like the way that the jail was set up, I was like, "This is so similar to boot camp." Um so the day I was set to leave was December 8th of 2015, and this was 6 months after my high school graduation. So the day that I left, my mom, I think it was my mom, dropped me off at the recruiter's office because the recruiter had to like finish your paperwork and finalize everything and then drive you to the airport. And so I had said goodbye to my siblings like the night before, my best friends the night before. And I remember just sobbing uncontrollably when I was hugging people goodbye because I was terrified and I didn't know when I was going to see them again. And like I had never left my home before. I was so innocent and naive. Like I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just signed these papers because two people I know had done this. And I was like, cool. Yeah, I'll do it too. So I was actually supposed to ship out with another girl, but when we were getting ready to leave from the recruiter's office, she told them that she had hurt herself recently, like intentionally, and that she had scars that would be seen when we got to boot camp. So that actually kept her from being able to go. So one of the recruiters had to stay with her and like handle that situation, and another one drove me down all by myself. So he dropped me off at that same hotel that I had stayed at for MEPS, and he let me know that someone would be there to take me to the airport the next morning. And I just stayed up that entire night, just sobbing because I was so scared. I had no idea what I was doing. I did not feel prepared. I did not memorize the information they told me to memorize. I could like barely run a mile, barely do push-ups. So I was like, how am I going to actually go through with this? Because as soon as I get to basic training, they're gonna realize I'm a fraud. I do not belong there. So I fly out of Salt Lake City and I go to Chicago O'Hare. They had told me to meet everybody at the USO. So I went up there and there was a bunch of other kids flying in from all over the country who were getting ready to go to boot camp. So we all kind of just hung around until somebody was there to get us. And we piled onto this bus and we were told to not speak to each other, not look at our phones, and just watch the video that was playing in the front of the bus. Um, and it was about an hour-long drive from the O'Hare Airport to Great Lakes, where the naval basic training is. And so that entire drive, I was just like pooping my pants in fear because I had no idea how I ended up in the situation, even though like I actively made every single decision that got me to that point. So it was nighttime when we arrived at the base, and the RDCs, which is what they call the Navy drill sergeants, they immediately start screaming at you when you are getting off the bus. And they're just screaming, like telling you you're stupid, telling you to look them in the eyes or look down, and they're just screaming. It's like your first kind of initiation. So they have you stand in a line, and then we walk inside, and they kept us awake that entire night, just doing all of the processing. First, they made us do a drug test, but we had to like pee in a room of 5 toilets with an RDC in the middle, watching all of us pee at the same time. And if you couldn't pee in the cup when it was your turn in their room of toilets, they taped a piece of paper to your shirt that said pee, and you had to chug water and walk around the room in circles until you could pee. And so there was one girl who like was chugging water and walking around there for hours because she could not pee. So I just forced myself. I was like, "Okay, gotta do it. Don't want to walk around and be the pee girl with the pee shirt." And you're just given like tons of information that first night. They give you new clothes. You have to box all your belongings, including your phone, and ship it home. And then you can make a single phone call to tell whoever it is that you decide to call that you made it to basic training. Um, and so I called my boyfriend at the time and I told him to call my mom and let her know that I had gotten there. And I remember he was telling me he was so proud of me. And it just reminded me of like the pressure that I felt to do well and actually go through with this decision. So I was like, hey, got it. I'm doing this thing. And then for the next few days, you just are constantly degraded and screamed at. It does not let up from 4 a.m. until, 10 p.m., they're just ragging on you. And I know that that's their job. Like they are supposed to do that when you're in military basic training, obviously, but like I was not prepared. I was designated to be the MA, which is the Master at Arms of the little division of girls that I had for processing days. And that was nothing special. It basically meant I was responsible for making sure like toilet paper was stocked, tampons, all that stuff, that we had enough of them. So during one of the first days of basic, they hold a meeting that they call the moment of truth. And this is where you can own up to anything that would potentially bar you from joining the military, that you may have withheld from your recruiters. And I already, at this point, was very overwhelmed and I wanted to leave. So I stood up during the moment of truth. And before you go to boot camp, your recruiter drills into your head, no matter what you do not stand up during the moment of truth. No matter if you think that there is something that they could potentially get you in trouble for, do not stand up because they can't. And so it was like drilled, do not stand up. And immediately when they asked you to stand up, I stood up. But I did not have anything to confess. So I had told them that I had gotten a parking ticket a few weeks before, but I had already paid it and it was fine and it was like squared away. So they told me to go sit back down. And so after that, you have to go through an entire day of like lab work, physicals. You have to get all new vaccinations to make sure that you're completely caught up on vaccines. And this is where I started to feel like physically unwell. So when I was having my blood drawn, I passed out. And then the next morning, I fainted again. And I had never passed out before in my life. I had never been like weird with blood or fainted when I saw blood. And I just started feeling like really dizzy and off balance. So then I was seen by one of the doctors on the base, and they sent me for like a myriad of tests to determine why I was fainting and off balance. And so they found out that I was anemic, which made sense because at the time I had been on my period for 7 months straight. Shout out to the Depot shot. That is the worst birth control you can ever take, for me at least. So after they found out I was anemic, the main doctor met with me and like laid it all out on the table. And she said they could work with me and work with the medical team and try to get my anemia under control at boot camp so I could continue and be in the military. Or I had the option of being medically separated and going home. I did not even hesitate. I was like, yep, nope, yeah, I do not care. Send me home. I thought it was going to be like, cool, get on a plane, go home, I'm done. But it was not that simple. I was then transferred to the separations or SEPS unit, and you still have to do every single thing as the other naval recruits would do. You have to wear the uniform, slick back your bun, wake up at 4 a.m., have your perfectly made bed, all of that. But you are in the process of waiting for legal to separate you from the military. So for some people, this like legal waiting time is just a couple of weeks, but some girls live in separations for like months at a time. One girl had been there for like 6 months just waiting to be sent home for boot camp. And so, of course, when I get in there and start hearing all of these stories of girls who have been there for 3 to 6 months, I panic. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was a horrible decision. I'm never going to go home. I'm going to die here in the separations unit with all of these girls. And in the separations unit, you are piled together with anyone who is separating for any reason. So any girl who is leaving boot camp for a medical, psychiatric, criminal, like any reason, you're all rooming together and you're all in the same unit. But I actually made some really amazing friends during that time. Because it's such a unique situation that you go through together, it really bonds you because nobody else has experienced it. And there was this group of four girls that I just clicked with, and we were inseparable. We would eat, sleep, shower, go to the bathroom, go to church, cry. Like we would do everything together. And church actually became our only getaway because you're only allowed to leave the unit to attend church on Sunday, but you can attend as many church sessions as you want. So we would just go and sit in church and listen to different religions, different preachers for hours, just to get a break from that like depression that was the separations unit. And I remember so many random things from my time in that unit. Like the week that I got to SEPS, a girl pointed to the giant bruise on my butt that was left over from getting the peanut butter shot, which is like a giant thick shot of penicillin that you get when you first arrive to boot camp. And I was like, please do not look at my butt while we are naked together in this shower room. Um, this was my first experience with like a lot of LGBTQ people because I grew up in Utah and it was very conservative. And so I was like, oh my gosh, these girls are all dating each other and they're making up and breaking up and fighting. And I feel like I'm in a movie. And so during this time, I'm writing letters to my family, you know, writing back and forth. I posted on Facebook, I was like, oh, I have to be separated from the Navy for medical reasons. When in reality, the Navy was like, I mean, yeah, you can be separated for medical reasons, but like we could also probably get it under control and you could stay. And I was like, no, 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 no. I'm leaving for medical reasons. We're telling my family and friends that you did not want me and that I have to leave because I'm anemic. Because of how the legal process works when you're being separated, you never know when you're leaving. Every night in the separations unit, they would read off a list of names of people who would be leaving the next day. So every night you sit there with all of this anticipation, just praying that your name would be read. And for weeks, it was never my turn. Um, and so remember, I went to boot camp the first week of December, and I didn't come home until February. So I didn't leave until the week that my division that I arrived with graduated from boot camp. And my friends from SEPS watched our division graduate and they were still there after everybody else had left. So that was not fun. Just the waiting game and never knowing, like, never having a timeline of when it was going to end, it felt like torture. I was there for Christmas, I was there for New Year's, and I just remember being so depressed on Christmas because I was like, I'm not with my family. I'm with all these girls. We're in this chow hall where we're not allowed to talk to each other. And then we go back into the rooms, and, it's just awful, 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 awful. Um, but I feel like it was a pretty unique experience. And I'm kind of happy that I went. Like, I'm kind of happy that it happened to me because It made me realize first that I could never, ever be in the military and that I needed to figure something else out quickly. Um, that was a little bit better suited to my personality. And it introduced me to some friends that I still have today who I keep up with. Um, and it showed me people from all over the world that I never would have met otherwise. I lived in my little bubble of Utah and grew up with the same people my whole life. And so this was a great way to learn about other cultures and other places just in America and how the people lived there and, learn the reasons that people were joining the military, learning the reasons why they were separating from the military. Like everybody had a very interesting story there. Like when my friends found out that she had cancer when we were in boot camp, another girl found out she was in liver failure. Like there's so many horrible things. And then we're all together just becoming this little weird family. So when I finally got my papers and the notice that I was going to be going home the next day, I was able to call somebody to organize transport from the airport. Um, and I did not tell my family. I did not call my parents because I wanted to surprise them. So I called my best friend and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming home tomorrow and can you pick me up?" And so I surprised my parents and I just remember crying and crying and crying. And I remember my mom being like, "Oh my gosh, you lost so much weight." If you are afraid of conflict and yelling and also running and doing push-ups, I would not recommend joining any military branch. 0 out of 10, not for me. But if you're listening to this and you were in SEPs with me, I miss you and I love you and I wish that we were closer and I wish that could have like a little group meetup of all of us and catch up on our lives. This was my short little bonus episode of what my life was from December 2015 to February of 2016. And power to all of the men and women that are in the military because that is not for everybody. Obviously, like I should have known. Um, but I just really commend you for even making it through boot camp. So that's this week's little bonus episode. Stay tuned for Sunday. I will have a regular episode dropped. I'm really excited about this one. It's with my best friend from the last 15 years. If you were curious about why I was let go from boot camp, that is why.